Wendy, it's always a good time to talk about being more mindful of our environmental footprint, but it's particularly good time to talk recycling this week. Why?
Indeed, that's because it's a Saturday is two big days. It's the International Coastal Cleanup Day as well as being National Recycling Day. And as you know, I think we both share a passion for all things recycling.
Yep.
But a very good time to be doing it today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just on that note of International Coastal Cleanup Day, there are beach cleanups happening everywhere over the coming weekend. We are going to profile one of the big ones on the show this Friday. But obviously, Wendy, it takes more than just the occasional beach cleanup to deal with the scope of this problem.
Of course, South Africa has over 3,000 kilometers of coastline and some of the most diverse marine environments in the world. So the issue of marine litter is a major threat to our beaches and our marine life. This study is a bit old, but it's I'm sure even more relevant now. In 2013, a study conducted by the University of KwaZulu-Natal reported that 70% of small fish caught from the estuaries and Durban Harbour in eThekwini showed evidence of plastic litter in their gut.
Wow.
We know a lot of the statistics we see are international ones, but that one's fairly close to home.
Yeah.
So
70%. Okay. And, I'm always interested, Wendy, every time we talk about beach pollution, I have at least one listener phoning in bemoaning how ships and fishermen must be stopped from dumping their trash at sea. So I always like to take the time to remind everybody it's not only coming from vessels and people on the sea. In fact, 80% of what is ending up in the ocean, at least, is coming from the land. It's being washed out into the ocean via the stormwater drainage system and then pushed back onto the beaches where we pick it up on Coastal Cleanup Day. And it's so important to emphasize that this is everybody's problem. Wendy, I know the experts like to catalogue the different types of waste that they pick up. Just remind us which are the most sort of vexatious products they find.
Okay, so it varies a bit from country to country, but as far as our beaches go, the so-called dirty dozen are the following: plastic carrier bags, even now.
Yeah, still. Sure.
Chip packets, cigarette lighters, cool drink bottles, cool drink lids, earbuds, those things we shouldn't put in our ears.
Yep.
Fishing line, light sticks, plastic lollipop sticks, straws,
Still the straw, yeah.
sweet wrappers, and water bottles. So there's individually wrapped sweet wrappers. There's any convenience food, really.
Yeah.
I was at a packaging awards judging thing in Joburg last week, and some of the entries were there's a sort of African category, and a lot of them were convenience little sachets of coffee, for example, in foil, because you in those markets it's what you've got to buy right now, and it's usually
you need
a little bit of money, and they hang these strips from the tree branches and sell them like that. But we came across, and so clever, because coffee wasn't sold like that before, but then you've got to look at the environmental
impact
issue
of all those sachets being discarded.
Because that's the kind of thing you will find on a beach.
And I mean, I have done a coastal cleanup every year religiously for the last 17 years, I think, for as long as my husband's been working in the packaging industry,
Yes.
Wendy. And those sweet wrappers, those individual sweet
Terrible.
wrappers, every
Awful.
single year. They are just ubiquitous, as are the earbuds, as are the lollipop sticks, as are the cool drink
Anyone
lids.
who's done a cleanup can relate to this list really well.
Okay, so again, to emphasize, and I know, some people think, not my problem, I never litter on the beach, I don't dump things in the drain, but Wendy, that doesn't mean that we are somehow exempt any responsibility in this problem. It's about the choices we make as consumers.
Exactly. It's about the brands you buy, so knowing which is the right plastic, which is the wrong plastic, which is more likely to be recycled, informing yourself around that, because companies should be manufacturing for recycling and reusing, but in many cases the brand equity, as far as they're concerned, carries more weight than that. So I have been making this product in a brown plastic bottle. It's synonymous with our brand, and we're going to carry on.
Even though the brown plastic's not attractive to recyclers.
Very unattractive. So it needs to get to the point, because they're taking perfectly good PET, which is high value for recyclers and for the legions of people who pick up our waste from the dumps, from our bins, from the streets and from the beaches. It's up to us as consumers in vast numbers to say, well, I'm not going to buy your product anymore. Why are you putting it in a green bottle?
Yeah, why is your milk in a blue bottle all of a sudden? I'm not
Yes.
choosing that one anymore.
Yes, no, I'm not either.
It's a choice I made personally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think many others like us have made a similar choice. So it's knowing that, for example, if you're buying bottled water or cool drinks, choose the ones in the brands in the clear PET bottles. They're the ones that get the most that is most worthwhile for the reclaimers. I love that word instead of waste pickers, because they're reclaiming what we've thrown away.
Yeah.
What we've made the wrong choice about. Choose those because they're more likely to pick them up. It's the same effort to pick up one that's going to get more money for them than one that's not going to fetch very much. Light blue is second best. And the recyclers pay top dollar for those clear and to a lesser extent light blue. Greens, browns, dark blues produce a sludgy coloured rPET, which is recycled PET, known as rPET, which can't be made into new bottles, for example, because the colour is just not clear enough.
And consumers just don't like it.
Consumers don't like it, so it'll go to making pipes and that kind of thing. But yes.
So clear is always, if you must buy, and again, I mean, you've got to do your decisions here. Do I not buy in plastic at all? Do I buy in glass? Each different kind of packaging comes with its own particular carbon footprint issues. But if you're going to buy plastic, buy the clear PET in choice over the coloured one, because the coloured ones simply get left behind on the dump in many cases because it's not worth the reclaimers' while to pick them up. So, I mean, Wendy, they do a huge service for us. They're doing the real dirty work, obviously, of sifting through the what's there on the landfill and in the dumpsters, etc. And it comes down to how much they get paid, and it's really all about the colour and the weight, isn't it?
It is. And so, to getting back to that packaging award judging panel, a product of what was put into a small sort of travelling size bottle, and all very nice, lovely design. And the plastics expert on the panel said, because they said it's recyclable, they said, well, it's not really recycled in great numbers because they're very small and they not much, they'll rather be overlooked by a reclaimer because of the size, because they sell on weight, right?
Yeah.
And so she said what she does, and this is very higher grade recycling, and I'm definitely going to start doing it, because there are many times when you have these small bottles and I know they're not going to get, I mean, I put them in the stream, but I know they're not going to go. Is she slices a seam in the side of a 2-litre Coke bottle or whatever brand of 2-litre bottle you have, and then she delabels the smaller bottles and she shoves them in there without the caps, and then you know that it's going to go. And I ran that past the owner of this recycling plant that I visited this week, and he cocked his head to the side and he said, "Yeah, that will work."
Okay, so you put the smaller bottles inside the bigger bottle,
make sure
and
they're
it ensures
PET,
that they get
so
picked
it's
up.
all the same substrate.
Okay,
all the same kind of plastic rather. And yes, with labels are a huge issue, because the glue can actually cause more problem. The glue that they're stuck onto the bottle with can cause more problems in many cases than the color of the
bottle
itself. So the best ones actually have labels stuck onto label, as you'll find in an Aquilo bottle, for example, and it just comes off literally. You don't have to battle at all. The idea being that in a recycling plant, in the big tanks, they rely on friction to
loosen that
rub
label
that
off,
rub the label off. And if they're stuck on with we know the brands that leave a big residue and that are really stuck on with non-recycling friendly glue, that causes, if you look at the flake that comes out, you can see the bits of glue stuck to it. And
so that's a less desirable.
It's much less desirable, yes. So there are all these issues. We should be looking not only at the color, but at the kind of the way the label is glued on. If it doesn't come off really easily without residue, then you must know that in the recycling plant that's going to cause problems.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned that you've been to visit a new recycling plant this week, Wendy. This is a very interesting story. It gets us back to a conversation we've had before about the Thermoform forms, those punnets that come with fruit, with the pre-chopped fruit and your sushi platters and that sort of thing.
The dome over your sushi platter, the salad bowls, and mostly the fruits and the veg.
Okay.
So your little punnet of blueberries and your whatever, and I can hear people listening saying, well, you shouldn't be buying it loose, you shouldn't be having it. and that's also true. But the reality is a large volume of these things, they're called thermoforms.
Okay.
And they're PET, but the problem is that in order to get, obviously to transport them, they can't be transported all individually, so they get stacked. And in order for them to be unstacked to pack, they apply a layer of silicone, and that silicone can cause issues in the recycling plant.
System.
So many of them won't, especially those that are making bottles, will not recycle them. And Woolworths has actually declared it for quite a number of years now on those packs, say do not recycle, which has led many people to assume in the cases of the Thermoform punnets that don't have that on, that they are recyclable, and it's not true. Woolworths just chose to be upfront and transparent about it, which has led in their case to some unfortunate assumptions.
Okay. So the plant that you visited this week is actually a new partnership plant with Woolworths that's designed to tackle this issue of the thermoforms not being recyclable. Tell us, amongst other things.
Things. So it's a new PET wash and decontamination plant. The decontamination part being to enable them to recycle it or to produce another food grade product, another punnet.
Okay, so they'll wash out that silicone.
Zebo Containers is the company. They make containers, right?
Okay.
So they don't have to have PET or PET suitable for bottles. It's fine for it to go into containers. And it's about to just been commissioned. The day I visited, unfortunately, they had some technicians out from Germany to configure the sorters. In other words, what they want to spit what
in
kinds
which
of
direction,
plastic they
yes.
want to spit out and keep, kind of thing. So I didn't see it in action, unfortunately, because I do love a plant visit. But the upshot is that in the case of Woolworths specifically, about 1,000 of its food packaging items, these thermoforms, can now be recycled into food grade pellets and then made into new containers, which is huge for ardent recyclers such as you and me. Woolworths says it's particularly exciting for us to get this additional 1,000, what they call semi-rigid PET thermoform food packaging into recycling. And it's circularity at its best. So this is where recycling is going, that you put it out and you bring it back and you keep
use it again and again
as often as you can. Eventually it will become too brittle, but it's after many uses. Many turns in and out of the chain.
Okay. The other interesting thing they've done is change the glue. Wendy, you mentioned already that issue of how the very, very sticky glue makes it very difficult to recycle because the flake that's left at the end still has glue residue on it. Woolies has actually changed to an easy wash off glue, I believe.
In the last year, I think it was. Its brand name is Clean Flake, but it's essentially an easy wash off glue that ensure that there's no residue left on those recycled pellets, which can compromise the recycled plastic, and they can use it then in far more things. So in the case of a bottle could be then remade into a bottle rather than it being downgraded into other users.
Okay. Now, it was inevitable that somebody would message us, Wendy, to say, it's Tracy saying, I bought those preformed tubs at Woolies yesterday, and they're still saying that they're not for recycling.
Well, thank you for that question,
yes.
Tracy, because Woolworths did mention that that is it is historic packaging. They don't want to. So it's always a bit of a toss up with these issues. They didn't want to waste the packaging that they already have, so they're running it out. But the message is, from now, certainly you can put those thermoforms that you've bought from Woolies into the recycling.
Okay, so even if the label says it's not recyclable, they do, as of now, have the capacity to recycle it because of this new relationship with the new plant. Okay, thank you for that. So that's very interesting. Zebo is the name. Zebo Container is the name of the new plant that they're in partnership with. And what about the changeover process? I mean, I imagine there will be a while the old stock is phased out, new stock phased in. Is there any issue there?
No, so it's just a labeling issue. So currently they've got the right glue, and they can go to a plant where they can be recycled. It's just that the labeling, ironically, says it can't be recycled,
but it actually can.
The question that I wanted to know was, we don't have a direct line from our kitchen to Zebo Containers. What about other punnets, other thermoforms, that are not from Woolworths? I mean, they're sold by all supermarkets in great quantities. Will that not? They might not have the same glue. I mean, the owner of Zebo Containers said to me that that they love to put this kind of quite heavy duty solvent, slap it all over the thermoform, which makes it a problem. So he said, well, if up to 50% of the punnets that they feed into the system have the right label. In other words, the one, the easy wash off
glue,
one.
yeah.
It shouldn't be a problem. He said no, so far no punnets have actually been rejected by their new system, and obviously it's calibrated and everything else. And also to say that the biggest recyclable is still going to be your PET bottle. So the punnets are never going to make up 100% of what they're recycling. He's working on what they anticipate 9 kilograms of bottles to 1 kilogram of Thermoform. So it's a 9 to 1 as far as volume goes. So yeah, but it's hurt me for many years, and I've spoken about it often, to throw those what was once perfectly good PET just because of a bit of silicone, to throw them in the black bag instead of the recycling one.
Yeah.
So I think this is quite a big deal. I think many people have assumed that they're recyclable and have been putting them in the recycled bag anyway, and they've been landing up in landfill. I did see a bag of them at Zebra Containers, and you could see that they'd come off a landfill, that the collectors are actually taking them out of landfill because they were dirty. But obviously, you could see the size of this machinery. It is a decontamination plant, so it gets washed again and several times, and otherwise it wouldn't be food grade
at the end of it. Wendy, I mean, the main thing we want to do with this kind of ongoing conversation is to conscientize listeners about the choices that you're making and the factors that play into what gets recycled and what doesn't. So I'm really gratified to see how many people are clearly thinking about it and questioning individual products. And for example, I think it's Dom messaging to say Woolworths heavy plastic soup packets are still not recyclable. Surely they could put those in something else. Another person pointing out that things like oil bottles and mayonnaise are
terrible
not
because
not
the oil residues are terrible for the recycling.
So that's something to be aware of.
That industry needs to come
up with a solution.
Yes.
And Andy messaging to say, I'm still puzzled why Checkers has reverted back to using plastic bags in their bakeries rather than the paper ones that Pick and Pay and Woolies use.
Any ideas? I'm going to try and look it up while we're chatting.
Okay.
Just the last thing I wanted to say was that it was so interesting sitting in this boardroom at the recycling plant yesterday, looking at what the punnets that they've made from 100% rPET going down to, say, 30%.
Yeah.
The difference in color. And so even at, a little bit, even at 20-30%, the color, it's not as clear. And consumer perception is not good around this.
Yeah.
We don't want our food to come in punnets that have got a slight, even if it's subconscious in some cases, I think, that are slightly brown, especially not brown, or a little bit blue. And so you have the supermarkets and the brands sort of pushing back and saying, I don't know if consumer acceptance will be. Sometimes I think that they just assume things on behalf of us that maybe wouldn't come to pass, but this is the issue. So those of us who are saying pushing recycling, we could be the same people who have a look at a punnet that's got a brown tinge and think, I don't want it. To know, it's important to know it's just color. It's got nothing to do with integrity or safety or quality or anything. And also, I had thought 100% rPET was the way to go, and some manufacturers have won awards for putting their products in it. And Zebra Containers, the chaps there say not so much, because there's a shortage of the stuff, and if he says 30 to 40% around there is ideal because it's saving a lot of virgin PET, and at the same time making sure there's enough of the stuff to go around, and that would have a bigger impact than
if more people started recycling.
Yes, and also
to a degree rather than some doing it to the nth degree and some others doing it not at all.
Yeah, and he said also at 100%, in some cases like a punnet, it starts becoming a little brittle and can sort of shatter, for want of a better word. Big cracks. I just learned so much, and I also to question some of my own perceptions and how valid they were, and totally invalid as it turns out. So
interesting. Wendy, before we leave the recycling issue, Andy sent that very pertinent email asking about the Checkers plastic bags at the bakery. You've actually engaged with them already about
have,
this.
And my apologies, Andy, if you're listening, and you asked me this some time ago. I did get the response from Shoprite, but I clearly neglected to share it with you. So here it is. Shoprite says our supermarkets use a selection of packaging including brown paper, craft bags and plastic bags currently. As part of our commitment to support a circular economy, there's that word we're going to be hearing over and over, the group is constantly designing redesigning its packaging with sustainability in mind. It has committed to ensure that 100% of its own brand packaging is reusable, recyclable, and compostable, and that it contains, on average, 30% recycled material by 2025. That's very soon. And there's the 30% number coming up again.
Yeah.
Good progress has been made already, says Shoprite, transitioning key packaging categories, including all paper and carton board packaging used at in-store delis, bakeries, and fresh fish sections are now 100% responsibly sourced. Private label Crystal Valley fresh milk bottle cap color has been changed from blue and red to white, which enables recyclers to eliminate downcycling into darker cap colors. Like black, it's again that theme coming through. You always choose the lighter ones. In the next 2 months, so it should be now, unrecycled PET Thermoform plastic sandwich punnets will be replaced with a craft carton sandwich wedge, which has a small window for easy removal before recycling. So there's, instead of finding a recycling solution, they've just replacing the thermoforms there with a craft carton sandwich wedge. So there's clearly a very deep concern on the
consumer part,
on the thermoform things that have been going to landfill. In addition, the group currently recycles the following volumes of material per hour through its reverse logistics operations. It's a lot. Let's just leave it there. The numbers are not going to mean anything to our listeners, but let's just say it's a lot. Just to get back, it's a lot of information. The original question was why
plastic bags in the bakery.
Plastic bags in the bakery instead of the switch from paper bags. They're saying it's part of their whole story, but I'm not sure that specifically will address
the specific question of those bags,
because
still being used,
those flimsy non-rigid plastic bags are not recycled.
Yeah, I mean, the use of the barrier bag everywhere also. I know it's got its place very importantly for some customers who rely on that depending on how they're transporting their groceries, etc. It has its place that I don't want to disregard. But again, if the customer refuses it, Wendy, I mean, I just say I don't want it.
They don't, and then you don't get it.
Just put. I don't need the 2
separate
oranges
bag.
in a barrier bag. Put them into my shopping bag I bought with me, my fabric shopping bag. I'll take it home in that. So start telling them you don't want it, which clearly Andy is already doing. Andy, thanks for that. We've got a couple of voice notes from listeners on this topic. Let's take a listen.
I have a question. I like to rinse out things before I put them into my recycling, just a quick rinse. And my husband says I'm just wasting water because when they go to the recycling plant, everything gets washed. So can you tell me whether I should be rinsing things, especially jars of something that might have had something slightly oily in it, perhaps like a pickled vegetable or something like that? Should I just be putting them into the recycling dirty or should I be washing them? Thank you.
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I have this debate at home as well. I put the mayonnaise jars, the peanut butter jars, etc., in with the dishwasher, Wendy, so that it gets run. They come out absolutely sparkling
extra
clear.
cost or water.
And I often wonder, does it matter?
Yeah,
so
it
I
does
know I've
matter.
cleaned it. Or they're still
If
going to
you've
reject
ever
it.
visited a plant, you'll know it definitely does matter. That stuff stinks, and also it's just less strain on the system if it's washed. And I'm so glad that our super greeny listener did send that voice note, because I neglected to say, on Woolworths' behalf, please do rinse those punnets before. And there are ways to do it that doesn't take extra water. You could, if you've got washing up liquid, rinse it out. It doesn't have to be pristine. Just get most of it out that way. Stick it in a dishwash load that you're doing anyway, which I've read some recent research on is really, really is very light on resources. The newer dishwashers. I'd always had this perception that they were, in the
Heavy
tumble
on water,
dryer
heavy on electricity,
category of use, but definitely not. So yes, the answer is whatever it is. If you can rinse it in grey water or in a dishwasher load that you're doing anyway, please do that. That is definitely what the recyclers would appreciate, and everyone in the stream, even the pickers. Imagine the reclaimers.
Having to pick up 3-day-old food attached to the inside of it. It's not a job anybody wants to do.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on Cape Talk.